share the wealth in that regard.
Boston was pushed down. 7 to shoot. Boston with take. After they had fallen behind by 6 in the quarter, then Sydney Colson, as Aaliyah Boston has an extended conversation with the official, and then is going to get over to Angel Gray. Angel?
Aaliyah Boston left the court looking visibly frustrated. Kelsey Mitchell had just dropped 24 points while running the offense out of position, helping the Fever rally from 17 points down, despite missing Caitlin Clark, Sydney Colson, and Aari McDonald. They'd fought all the way back and had the game within reach till it slipped away in the final moments. A rushed shot, no timeout, and a string of controversial calls, the kind the coach later criticized, publicly sealed their fate. Afterward, Aaliyah's post-game remarks were brief, blunt, and laser-focused on the real reasons for the loss. But before we get to what she said, here's how the Fever ended up in this position. What's your take on this heartbreaking finish?
7-0 Indiana run. They're within 2 and a foul. This time, Peppers does get the call.
I thought this might have been an offensive foul. Power for the finish.
Indiana's considering challenging this call, but they will not, as Peppers gets...
How do you run an offense when your entire point guard depth chart vanishes overnight? For Indiana. It wasn't a thought experiment, it was reality. Just days before facing Dallas, disaster struck in the Phoenix game. In one brutal stretch, Sydney Colson tore her left ACL and McDonald suffered a fractured bone in her right foot. Both were done for the season. In an instant, the Fever lost 2 floor generals tasked with setting the tempo, controlling possessions, and keeping the offense in sync. With Caitlin Clark already sidelined since July with a groin injury, Indiana suddenly found themselves without their top 3 point guards for the first time all year. No steady ball handlers, no one to break full court pressure, and no one to run the system exactly the way this roster was built to operate.
So what's the reaction been from you guys, the players, the coaches, to losing Sydney?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, just brokenhearted for them. They're 2 really good people that you hate to see this happen to. They've been an integral part of what we've been doing, and so hate it for them. Unfortunately, it's part of the deal, and we've got to roll with it. And, we've got players in that locker room who believe in one another, players in that locker room who are competitive as all get out. We've got versatility, and it's going to have to be on full display. So I think now it's about playing to honor them, right, and playing for them.
The impact was felt instantly. Without a true floor general to steady the offense, breaking defensive pressure became a battle. Turnovers mounted, and even basic entry passes turned into chaotic, contested plays. Against Dallas, those weaknesses were brutally exposed. Minus 17 turnovers handed the Wings 27 points, meaning more than a quarter of their offense came directly from Indiana's mistakes before the Fever could even set up a half-court possession. Every trip down the floor demanded extra energy, every pass carried higher risk, and the margin for error, already razor-thin, vanished completely.
It's never fun to lose. I thought we got a pretty good look out of it, but again, I think we shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. The 17 turnovers got us there. So yeah, we shouldn't have even been there, but I thought that's better than that. Unfortunate, but yeah, on to the next.
To keep a functional rotation on the floor, the front office had to act fast, signing veteran Odyssey Sims to a hardship contract. She had barely a day to glance at the playbook or develop any chemistry with the roster before being thrown into action. In her debut against Dallas, Sims logged 13 minutes, went scoreless, dished out 2 assists, committed 1 turnover, and spent much of the night trying to figure out where her teammates wanted the ball instead of playing with her usual instincts.
It's just exciting. I mean, I know that Indiana is a great organization, and just to be a part of it, just to be here with the great players that I want to be playing with. I mean, this is a great opportunity. I'm just happy to be here.
The most important thing for you in this situation is to just get acclimated, just kind of get your feet under you and feel your way around the new spot.
I mean, it's not my first time just coming to a new team and coming in and just being me. The biggest thing is just doing what I do best. Playing defense, playing hard, doing whatever the team needs. Obviously, I know they've been down with the injuries. Prayers up for Sid and Harry. Love them both. But like I said, I'm excited to be here. I'm not gonna do too much, but whatever coach tells me to do, so I'm gonna do and have fun and enjoy my team.
That left Indiana with only one viable choice to run the offense on nearly every possession. Move Kelsey Mitchell out of her natural scorer's role and into the lead guard spot. There was no time for a gradual adjustment. Every inbound. Offensive set. Every ounce of defensive pressure fell directly on her shoulders. And it wasn't just a tactical shift. It fundamentally changed the physical demands of her game. Mitchell now had to initiate possessions under relentless pressure, while still being counted on to produce as the team's primary scoring weapon.
Kelsey obviously can play make, as she showed in the last game, but it's not like her most natural way of playing, I would say. You have to tell her to focus on that. Does she kind of know, as the primary ball handler in this game, she'll do it? How does that kind of process work when it's not a true point guard at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I want her to just do what she's been doing. You know, she's been excellent all year long. She's been efficient all year long. Her decision making has been on point all year long.
The Dallas game was a clear snapshot of how much those injuries shaped the entire flow. With a makeshift backcourt, every basket demanded exhausting effort, and every turnover cracked the door for a Dallas run, yet even in that depleted state. Indiana stayed in it until the very end, largely because the player carrying the heaviest load refused to back down. That burden fell squarely on Kelsey Mitchell, the Fever's most lethal pure scorer, who suddenly had to run the offense from the opening tip to the final buzzer. Normally, she's catching the ball ready to score, not weaving through traps or directing half-court sets. But with Colson, McDonald, and Clark all out, she was the only true option to initiate, and Dallas knew it.
Every single playoff game will be on our networks. As Mitchell finally gets a look, her first points of the second half, curl it in. Doesn't get the whistle. Indiana with numbers the other way. Mitchell in the corner. Cunningham. Big game from Aisha Hines-Allen off the bench. Mitchell sprints into the lane, finds Cunningham. She got it on a three, and it's a single-digit deficit.
On paper, her numbers jumped off the page, minus 24 points on 7 of minus 15 shooting. 4 off 7 from deep, plus 6 rebounds. But those stats came with the weight of nearly every possession starting in her hands, against defensive schemes built to drain her energy. Dallas threw extra help at her in the backcourt, springing traps and quick doubles to turn every trip up the floor into a fight. And every time she knocked down a shot, it was immediately followed by another exhausting possession, where she had to break pressure, reset the offense, and still summon the focus to score again.
Mitchell trying to create with 5 to shoot. Mitchell through the lane, and another scoop it in, and it's a 1 game.
Marks right, but you know she loves to go left. How many defenders try to come over and help about 3 and still able to scoop it up and in?
Mitchell with 24 points.
It showed in flashes, a couple of possessions ending in turnovers. A few rushed decisions when passing lanes snapped shut, but Mitchell kept finding ways to keep the Fever alive. In the fourth quarter, with Indiana down double digits, she drilled a deep 3 from well beyond the arc, then immediately signaled to her teammates to lock in defensively. Just minutes later, she initiated a crisp pick and roll with Boston, threading a perfect pass for an easy bucket. Those were leadership. Plays the kind that went beyond just putting points on the board.
Mitchell trying to create with 5 to shoot. Mitchell through the lane, able to scoop it in, and it's a 1 game. Indiana ball down 1.7 to go. Cunningham has to get it in. Mitchell in the corner, can't hit, and Dallas hangs on. 81-80 the final, as the Wings win a thriller in Indy.
This wasn't her natural role, and it's certainly not a formula for long-term success. When one player is asked to shoulder nearly all the scoring and playmaking, it makes them an easy target for a locked-in defense, and that's exactly what happened here. Every possession began and ended with Mitchell, and when Dallas managed to slow her down, Indiana's offense stalled. Yet the fact that she still had them within a single shot of winning says everything about her resilience. Under those circumstances, Mitchell was pushed right to the edge of her limits, the engine, the clutch shot maker, and the vocal leader who kept her teammates locked in despite foul trouble and mounting frustration with the officiating. For opponents, her stat line tells the story. For the Fever, it's the hours of relentless effort she poured in to keep the team together in a role she never signed up for. And that's why fans are split, frustrated by the missed chance, but also in awe of how much she gave.
So I wanted us to outlet and attack in transition. When it got to the point where we didn't attack and we just started dribbling sideways, I probably should have used it at the 3-second mark instead of a little bit later. I thought Kelsey might have had a baseline drive, that she ended up coming back to the middle, and so I didn't like that. But I did want us to push in transition with a low block and limited opportunity.
And while Mitchell carried the heaviest load, she wasn't fighting alone. Other players stepped into bigger roles, knocking down timely shots, battling on the glass, and making defensive plays that kept Indiana within striking distance. Games like this reveal whose impact stretches far beyond the box score. And against Dallas, it was the role players who refused to let the deficit turn into a death sentence. Sophie Cunningham was relentless, scoring 14 points on 5 of 10 shooting and drilling 2 momentum-shifting threes that brought the crowd back to life. Every bucket came with her trademark edge, diving for loose balls, jawing after contact, and playing with the same fire her coach praised after the game. She later issued a public apology for a heated exchange with officials, but stood firm on the point she was making. That competitive spark was a major catalyst for the comeback. Chloe Bibby's minutes were limited, but her impact was huge. 11 points in just 12 minutes, going a perfect 3-4-3 from deep. One of those threes was a dagger during a Dallas push that threatened to put the game out of reach in the fourth, forcing the Wings to burn a timeout they didn't want to take. It bought Indiana precious rest at the exact moment they were starting their run.
Gets it back, 4 to shoot. Cunningham into the corner. Bibby again. Chloe Bibby breathing life into Indiana. A 19-0 Dallas run. Bibby buries the 3, just like in the first half.
In the paint, Natasha Howard was the anchor. She delivered a 12-point, 12-rebound double-double with 3 blocks, swatting away would-be layups and shutting down Dallas's second-chance opportunities. Her presence forced the Wings to work for every touch inside and gave Indiana the defensive backbone they needed to chip away at the lead. Aaliyah Boston absorbed heavy contact on nearly every possession, yet still finished with 14 points and provided crucial inside looks when the outside shots weren't falling. Her determination to battle in the post kept Dallas from pulling away in the second half and gave the Fever the offensive balance they needed when the perimeter game went cold.
Here is Cunningham. Off to Boston. Boston turns the corner, spinning inside and laying it in.
Lexi Hull's assignment was simple but critical. Make Paige Bucher's work for every look. She fought over screens, cut off angles, and disrupted passing lanes. Hull didn't put points on the board, but her defensive intensity in the middle of the fourth quarter slowed Dallas just enough to keep the momentum swinging Indiana's way. This wasn't a case of one player going supernova. It was a team executing exactly what the moment demanded. Indiana outscored Dallas 25-4 in the fourth, clawing their way into a legitimate chance to win despite missing their entire point guard rotation. And that's why the final moments hurt even more. They had built the stage for a statement victory, only to watch it slip away in a fashion that felt painfully avoidable.
Well, you were on the floor during that late third stretch when the Wings went on that run. What did you see then? What side was for you guys in that stretch?
We were just turnover. I mean, yeah, as I said, the 17 turnovers, and I think we just didn't match their physicality, and, we needed to clean it up, and I think that's what happened in the fourth when the girls come in, they really looked after the ball and, shared the ball offensively, and I think that's how we got into more of a group. It really started defensively, and in that third, we just let it slide. They had weighted and, points on that penalty.
The Fever's gritty comeback against one of the league's most physical teams should have been the story. Instead, the post-game focus shifted to late-game decisions that overshadowed all the hustle plays we just covered. In the final seconds, Indiana's chance at a statement win came down to one choice, and it wasn't made in time. With 11.7 seconds left, trailing by 1. The Fever pulled down a defensive rebound and opted to push in transition instead of using their final timeout. Kelsey Mitchell ended up taking a heavily contested jumper on the move that missed, and Dallas secured the rebound. Stephanie White stopped play with only 1.7 seconds remaining, far too late to design anything meaningful. After the game, she admitted, "I probably should have used it at the 3-second mark." A rare public acknowledgement of a tactical misstep in a crucial moment. That brief hesitation was the kind of detail that can alter the entire trajectory of a season.
You could overturn it to an offensive foul. You could also maintain that it's a foul but take away the continuation. All of those things could happen here on this call.
The interesting thing is, when you get to this point of the play, it is a foul on Boston. But it's because her arm was clamped earlier in the game.
Look at that.
Like, what can she do there?
She literally can do nothing. I don't know how that's not overturned to an offensive foul.
I agree with you.
That looks about as clear as it gets. And you saw how quickly Stephanie White challenged that.
But clock management wasn't the only talking point. Officiating became just as big a part of the postgame conversation, thanks to several high-impact moments that left the Fever seething. One came in the fourth quarter, when Aaliyah Boston battled for position under the rim, and the Dallas center locked up her arm. Instead of calling a hold or foul on Dallas, the officials whistled Boston. The call stood after review, prompting surprise from broadcaster Rebecca Lobo, who admitted she fully expected it to be overturned.
After review, we have no illegal conduct by Euro, so the call will stand as confirmed. This will be also. Indiana will lose the challenge and throws the timeout. One shot for Euro.
That's stunning to me. I mean, Aaliyah Boston, look at her. Lee puts her one hand down, and then hands Boston down on their own.
I gotta say, Rebecca, I'm sure we'll get an explanation from Sue Blau at some point soon.
In another sequence, Sophie Cunningham was assessed a flagrant foul on a closeout against Paige Buchers, after review this coming not long after. Buchers herself had a similar landing space foul upgraded earlier in the game. To add to the frustration, Kelsey Mitchell later took almost identical contact on a jumper and got no call at all. For Indiana, that kind of inconsistency wasn't just irritating, it directly changed possessions and shifted momentum.
Paige Becky putting her hands on Sophie to shove her up. You see Sophie's hand in the air. Both hands are in the air right now. And Paige Becky was shoving. She is shoving her clean off. Boom. Pushed her right into Howard. Pushed her into Howard. Now she's wide open and waiting for a pass like she just didn't do anything. Like she just didn't do anything. Wide open down here. Look at her. And then all of a sudden you get the whistle. Look at the ref. You see the ref? You see the ref right here. Calling the foul. And guess who the foul was on? Sophie Cunningham.
White voiced what Fever fans have been saying all season, that Kelsey is grabbed or bumped on nearly every off-ball possession and never gets the whistle. And that Aaliyah is the most poorly officiated post player in the league. It was blunt, direct, and left no doubt about how she and her roster felt regarding the standard being applied to their stars.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a physical game, you know. I think there's a double standard in how people get their calls. I think Kelsey Mitchell, number one, is held or chucked on every freaking possession and never gets a call off the ball. I think Aaliyah Boston is the worst officiated post player in the league. She never gets a call. And you know, there's a double standard there, certainly. But you know, again, if it's going to be physical and you're gonna allow it to be physical, then allow it to be physical. If you're going to call the holds and you're going to call the chucks, and you're going to then call it both ways. So, I mean, I think that we've been pretty consistent in what we're asking for. And I didn't feel like it was consistent, especially for those two. I think you could call a foul every time down the floor on 4 of those.
The emotional toll was visible in real time. Cunningham hit her boiling point after being shoved by Bukers, blurting out a sharp "goddammit" before walking away, a raw reaction she later apologized for post-game. It was another clear sign that composure was starting to crack. Even Caitlin Clark, sidelined with a groin injury, joined the silent protest, clapping deliberately in referee Amy Bonner's direction after the final buzzer in one tense late game. Exchange between White and an official, Boston stepped in, clearly upset, before Clark placed a hand on her coach to calm things down. Boston's post-game verdict was short but loaded. Asterisk, we need better focus. The line carried a double-meaning part: self-critique. Part commentary on a night when outside chaos disrupted their rhythm. It perfectly captured the fine line between owning what they could control and calling out what they couldn't.
Was so quick here just going to on that end of the floor.
I think it got better as the game went on. I think just starting, I think the physicality level is a little bit different on both sides of the ball, and but for us, really, I think it's got to be our focus. We got to make sure that we're connected on that end, making sure that we're in the right places for passes, and just being more conscious of us having the ball.
The stakes only made the frustration sting more. Dallas came in as a bottom 3 team, more likely to be thinking about draft position than playoff disruption. Indiana, meanwhile, needed this win to steady their footing in the standings. Instead, they slipped to 6th, tightening the postseason race with just a handful of games left, while some voices have called for Stephanie White's job in the wake of the loss. It's worth remembering she steered a roster gutted by injuries and still kept the Fever in the playoff hunt. The team itself has consistently praised their resilience and growth under her leadership. Whether this becomes a turning point or just another missed opportunity will come down to how they respond. The Fever have already shown they can grind their way into playoff position despite a depleted backcourt and short rotation, but late game execution breakdowns and high-impact officiating decisions cost them a winnable game in Dallas. The loss dropped them to 18-15 and 6th in the standings, ratcheting up the pressure on every remaining matchup. So what's your take? Should White have called that timeout sooner? And do the officiating moments we broke down point to a deeper issue or just a rough night? Caitlin Clark is still rehabbing, not yet back in practice, but the team expects her return in the coming weeks. Drop your thoughts below, like and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. Click the video on your screen, and we'll see you in the next one.